I know I don't look too great right now. I have such a headache, you would not believe. I get really bad migraines a lot, and I've been kind of propped up on Excedrin for like 8 hours now. So as soon as I get this recorded, I'm probably just going to go lay down for a while. I'm not feeling too great. And of course, the best thing to do when you've got a throbbing, earth-shattering migraine is to go see a really loud, explosion-filled movie, like The Expendables. Now, I just logged into my email and I saw that Brad posted his review of The Expendables, so I haven't seen it. But the thing is, I kind of think that Brad and I are a lot alike in a lot of ways, so I wouldn't be surprised if we cover the same ground almost like verbatim. We tend to like the same kind of movies, me and him, when we got together in Reno, we were just talking about like really obscure bullshit movies, and everyone around us was just shaking their heads like, I have no idea, what the fuck is he, Bruno Mattei, who the fuck is he? So, yeah, Expendables. Again, this is kind of a strange review for me to do. I always find myself kind of challenged by these movies that aren't really what I was expecting. And I don't know if it's going to be what you're expecting either. And I'm trying to find a way to explain it as best I could. I don't know what this movie wanted to be, It's kind of funny where I'm watching this film and it's a very simple film, and yet I'm confused. I couldn't figure this movie out. I couldn't tell if it wanted to be a really serious, dramatic action movie that had a lot of weight, a lot of gravitas, or I don't know if it wanted to be, and I think this is really what it wanted to be, was basically a throwback to 1980s action exploitation films, like the Schwarzenegger era. Those movies, or like even Stallone's era, that when he made movies like Cobra, or like even Tango and Cash and stuff like that. Probably not Tango and Cash, but definitely like Cobra, or the later Rambo movies. I think that's what it wanted to be, and yet this film is so tonally inconsistent that it can kind of confuse the hell out of me. And the more I think about it, the less I like this film. In fact, I walked out feeling pretty forgiving against this movie, and even in the half hour it's taken me to drive home and even set up the camera and think about this, I'm really cooling on this movie fast, to the point where I don't think it's a very good film at all. And that's kind of surprising to me, because it shouldn't be this bad. It really shouldn't. In fact, one looks at the talent involved. A huge amount of talent, actually. Like, basically all the action stars from the 80s, 90s, today, and even a bunch of other guest cameos thrown in. And you know what it is? It's kind of like another movie that I really, really hated, which was War, the Jason Statham, Jet Li film, which was sold entirely on the premise of you have these two awesome kick-ass, basically the defining action stars of like the late 90s, early 2000s, like Statham and Jet Li tore the shit up. And you're like, you kind of saw this movie where it, like, the entire poster was like Jet Li's head here, Statham's head here, war in between. And you looked at this film and you're like, this could not possibly suck. You just have the most two ass-kicking, awesome guys in action movies just fighting. And you're like, they couldn't fuck this up, And I guess that was naive on my part to believe that. And it kind of minimizes the importance of a good screenplay, even for an action movie. This was not a good enough screenplay. To the point where, what I wanted to see was, you had all these awesome talents together, and I think, I don't know why I thought this, but the initial impression I got was I thought they were going to do like a Dirty Dozen movie, which was you had these really iconic stars in this really tightly knit unit of soldiers, stuck in an impossible situation. Things are desperate. You know, they think they're all going to die, and it's basically like a desperate last stand with these characters. I thought it was going to be a much more intense, less silly action movie than it turned out to be. Almost basically a throwback like The Dirty Dozen, where you have an ensemble cast that is tightly knit and a much more, I'd say, grittier. Yeah, I think that's what I'm going for. And yet, this is a really loud and stupid action movie. And for a lot of people, and myself included, that might be enough. If it was just a really loud and stupid action movie, much like the ones in the 80s. Here's the problem. This is an extraordinarily big budget, star-studded, action-packed movie with this great cast, a lot of money, and this is all it wants to be. And I think that's the real shame of The Expendables, is that it could have been so much more than it is. It could have been a really intense, striking, much more memorable film than it turned out to be. And it really is just, it's basically, it's just wasting its time. It's basically, when you're watching this film, you're watching these guys having a good time. And I'm sure they did have a good time making this movie. I'm sure they were great friends. But it's just these guys mugging for the camera, a bunch of really old action stars, almost like the ECW One Night Stand, a bunch of old guys kind of getting it together one more time and doing things, like doing what they used to do, but not doing it nearly as well. And I think that they could have done a lot better, and I know they could have done better. In fact, I've seen these guys do better. Stallone even, in Rambo, you know, like Rambo is almost, Jesus, this is almost the exact same movie as Rambo, except with just more guys in it. You know, it's like, now that you think about it, my God, you might have almost had the same screenplay with the same character, except Rambo has much better friends in this film. It's like a guy goes to a jungle country, meets a strong-willed, crusading woman who's fighting against tyranny, who gets captured by the despotic warlord, and he, after a lot of soul-searching, decides that he's going to go back and rescue her. And man, that's the same fucking movie as Rambo. I can't even fucking believe it. Jesus. Wow. Hadn't even thought about that. So many of these guys have been in better movies that I don't think, I can't blame it on their age, is the fact this is not a good film. Like, even Dolph Lundgren did, I almost hate to bring this up as a good example, but Universal Soldier, the latest Universal Soldier movie, Regeneration, I think it was, that was a pretty good movie. You know, it proves that Dolph can still go. And actually, Dolph was really good in this movie. He was one of the better parts of this movie, sorely underutilized. And I think that's my main complaint, is almost all these guys are completely unused. You know, these guys are better actors than this, or at least they were deserving of a better script than this. And yeah, it's such a disappointment that this wasn't, like, you know, on a technical level, this wasn't an offensive movie. You'd probably walk away from this going, like, that was okay, but that's the point, was this is another one of those films where you look at the talent involved, you look at the budget involved, and you look at, you know, Stallone, who's really been on a roll lately. I loved Rocky Balboa, I loved Rambo, the new Rambo, and this movie was just, eh. And this should have been awesome. I don't know if I'm making sense in that regard. I guess what I'm talking about is, I almost need to bring up Boondock Saints. Part of the reason that I think Boondock Saints, I hate that movie so much, and I know, here comes the hate mail, but it wanted to be a certain type of movie, okay? Like, basically, the way this movie breaks down in the last act, it basically turns into Commando, Arnold Schwarzenegger's Commando, where it's just a really loud, explosion-filled climax where just hundreds of people, hundreds of, uniformed, dark-skinned people are getting just machine gunned down, stabbed, shot, rotary saws thrown in their heads, torched, burned alive, thrown into helicopters, shotgunned and just basically turned into pink mist all over the place. And that's what Commando... But the thing is, Commando was so much better. I can name... This movie wants to be one of those movies, but there's no shortage of dumb action movies. I'd rather see a good movie. This aspires to be a dumb, stupid, not very well-made action movie, and it succeeds in that score, I guess. But so what? And if it wants to be one of those 80s movies, it doesn't do any better than those movies. Those movies are so much better. Predator, Rambo 2, fuck, every one of those fucking movies is better. This is just a really unmemorable, I gotta tell you, up to the last act, really boring movie. It's stupid, it's not nearly as dramatic, and it's not as well written as I think Stallone thinks it is. So much of the dialogue is really stupid. I remember one conversation when they're meeting with the contact in this country, and they're looking at the artwork, which he's taped all over the inside of her truck, and she's like, "You want one of those? Take one." And he's like, "I don't take free gifts." And they get into this debate on, like, what's a gift, and what's a gift if it's not free, and it's really, really dumb. It's just like, this had some of the worst dialogue I'd ever heard in my life. The best actors in this movie are relegated to the smallest, worst roles. Like Mickey Rourke. Mickey Rourke kicked ass in this movie, but he didn't kick any ass. But like he had the best lines in this whole film, but it didn't relate to anything. It was just him telling. It was basically him telling stories about much more interesting films that we might have been seeing. Like, he was telling us a story about how they were pinned down in Bosnia fighting this warlord, and they were shot up, and they were all gonna die, and he was drunk, and he could have saved this woman, but he didn't. And, like, this was an awesome scene. I was actually sitting forward, like, Mickey Rourke is fucking tearing this up, as he always does. I'm sitting there going, like, this is fucking awesome. But there was, like 2 minutes in this movie, and I was like, this fucking rules. Why couldn't we see this movie? Like, why couldn't we follow Mickey Rourke instead of this stupid, airheaded fucking action flick? And, there you go. Dolph Lundgren had actually a really interesting character arc, I thought, where he kind of, he was kind of broken inside, and I think he was supposed to be using drugs, and he was turning on the group, but he was conflicted, but, he was still friends with these guys, but he was paid, so it was like... And do they do anything with that? No, not really. I thought he was wasted as well. Almost all these guys were wasted. That's the real shame of it. When it comes to the action department, you're like, okay, but I don't care about that. I just want to see these guys get together and kill shit. They do that. They do that a lot. And, the last act, the action was good when I could see it. And that was the problem. I think I could have forgiven a lot in terms of the stupidity and in terms of the uneven tone if the action was passable. And it's not. When I could see it, it was okay. The problem is, this is probably one of the worst shot action movies I've seen in a long time. It's just too damn close. It's just too fucking shaky. You know that whole shaky cam business that makes things look more intense and look more kinetic? It's just too much. I can't see what's going on. It was, I guess you could blame it on my headache. I guess you could blame it on the fact that I was sitting pretty close to the screen. I actually wasn't sitting that close. but it was just too close, too much shaking, it was too dark, there were too many edits, it was edited too quickly, it was just confusing. I couldn't follow any of it. In fact, there were several times when, there's a car chase going on, I couldn't tell who was crashing, I couldn't tell who was still in the fight, I couldn't tell who was hurt, who wasn't, who was shot, who wasn't. I couldn't tell anything about what was going on. And it got better in the closing moments of the final scene when they're shooting up the palace. It was better, but it still wasn't that good. So, yeah, when I could see it, it was fine. But man, I don't know what it just wasn't very clear. It wasn't very well shot, and that's the hell of it. Is yeah, I don't think it gets more complicated than that. It just, from a technical standpoint, it's not very good. And I hate to say that, man. I really wanted to like this movie. You have no idea how much I wanted to like this movie. That's all I got. I'm sorry, guys. I wish I had more to tell you, but this is just a really disappointing movie. I would suggest skipping it. It's not worth it. I'd seriously go rent Rambo. I liked Rambo so much better. If only because, man, this was almost identical to Rambo. But why doesn't it work as well as Rambo? That's the question. This is almost the same movie. Why do I like Rambo so much more? Hang on. You know what? Here's part of it. You know Rambo. Like, at this point, you feel like you know Rambo. Like, you know him as a character. Like, I know the movies have not been consistent at all. First Blood is essentially, like, an entirely different universe than the other Rambo movies. But still, when it comes to the last Rambo movie, Stallone plays him in such an embittered, dead inside, just seething cauldron of just fury, who just wants to be left alone because he knows he's dangerous. He like just with a look, Stallone can play this guy with so much intensity and emotion. You feel like you know Rambo. So, like, when he's faced with this, basically when he's faced with the turning point in his life, like when this woman has been abducted and they're like, please, Rambo, save this woman, save these missionaries. You can kind of feel the transition that goes on inside Rambo. It sounds silly because after that, the movie gets completely fucking stupid. Like, it basically becomes like Rambo turning Burmese dudes into just chunky meatloaf. But up to that point, like, you have an investment in Rambo. It's kind of silly. I feel stupid for saying it, but you know Rambo. In this movie, you don't know shit. You don't know anybody in this flick. I barely knew that. I know that Stallone's name was Barney. I think it was Barney Ross. And I think Jason Statham's character was Christmas. But beyond that, I don't know. I knew Dolph's name is Gunner. But, like, beyond that, I didn't know anybody. Like, they all had... I know they had stupid names. I guess they were stupid to make them more memorable, but it didn't work. Basically, you knew them by the act. They might as well have just gone in and called each other by their real names. In fact, that might have been an interesting character, for an interesting concept for the movie. If they just went in and talked to Randy Couture and they're like, "Hey, Randy, come on," and Randy's like, "All right," or they talk to Jason Statham like, "Hey, Jason, let's mount up," and he's like, "All right, Sly, let's do this," and like. That might have actually been helpful. It's like, "Hey, Jet Li, you want to go kung fu some shit?" And he's like, "I don't do kung fu." And I don't know, like, oh, yeah, I didn't know anybody. Like, you don't feel like you know that Randy suffered a cauliflower ear in a wrestling incident. Seriously, you know more about fucking Mickey Rourke than you do about anybody else in this movie. And Mickey Rourke's not really in this movie. He's just kind of this tattoo guy who is their mentor, or I don't even, he's not even their mentor. He just gives them tattoos. Like, he used to be a mercenary, but he's not anymore. But he is so much more compelling a character than any of these guys. It's astounding. Like, how we know more about a peripheral character than we do about any of these guys. Rambo's motivation is so much clearer than these guys. Which is kind of funny because the Expendables are motivated purely by money. But in this case, they're not. Because Stallone is like, I have to save this woman. I have to save her because she's noble. Or something like that. And you're just meant to roll with it. And I don't think the movie earns that. It takes so much... Yeah, it makes such a leap of conscience. It just expects you to believe that these hard-boiled mercenaries who are in it purely for the money are willing to just throw it all aside for friendship and basically kill a South American country. Because Stallone is like, a man's gotta do what a man's gotta do. I don't buy it. I don't believe... The movie does not earn that motivation. Honestly, and it's because the woman in question is nowhere near as good an actress. She doesn't convey that intensity. She doesn't convey that nobility. And seriously, the villains are completely unmemorable. And the sheer fact is that basically, I don't think any of us give a shit whether this country burns to the ground. Because it's full of corrupt people being manipulated by a corrupt CIA agent. There's one noble person in this fucking country. And it's this woman, and she's too stupid to leave for her own good. And Stallone is like, she's noble, I gotta save her. Like, who gives a fuck? You know, like... This is... I just don't see... These characters are mercenaries. They have such a long history of fighting, suffering, dying, going to war in these ass-crack shitholes in the world, and killing thousands of people for money. And all of a sudden, they've discovered nobility. All of a sudden, they've discovered a cause worth fighting for, and it's this woman. I don't buy it. Yeah. And that's what I mean when I say that this was so inconsistent in tone. In that it seems to really want us to take it seriously, which is impossible. Especially when you've got like Jason Statham running through a war zone throwing knives at people. Yeah, and the thing is, like, a dumb 80s action movie might have thrown that out there. It might have, it might have, thrown that out there as a character motivation, but it wouldn't have dwelled on it. It wouldn't have been, like... Hell, like Rambo. Like in Rambo, First Blood Part 2, Rambo meets that Vietnamese chick, and, like, they get together, they have a rapport, she sees something noble in him, so she saves him from torture. They talk about how, you're not expendable, Rambo. And they have this really close moment, and you believe that because she was a really good actress, for one. But this, the script was strong enough to support this relationship. She gets killed, and so, Rambo basically manages to avenge and go on the suicide mission to save these people he ordinarily wouldn't have given a shit about. That was a much better written movie. That was a much better acted movie. And that's actually an example of how that kind of scenario is played out much more successfully, and how this almost the exact same scenario fails in this movie. But a lot of other movies, like if you were trying to just rip off like if you were trying to do an homage to bad 80s action movies, they might have thrown that out there where like hell, like Strike Commando. If you were trying to go for like a Strike Commando movie, they could have done that if they'd have gone the full 9 and basically made this a comedy. Like, not like a comedy, but like really over the top. They could have gone severely over the top with this talent, and it might have been a lot better. Like if they'd have gone balls to the wall, just bizarre, kick-ass action where Jet Li is tearing apart rooms of people. Just pull the camera back, put Jet Li in the middle of a room with like 20 people, and just have him kill people, so you could see it. So it was shot well. It might have worked. Because like Strike Commando throws the same thing out there. Like Strike Commando, Reb Brown meets this kid, meets this woman. They know each other for like 5 minutes. He goes back, finds the entire village is slaughtered, but now it's personal. Jacoda! You know, like Reb Brown, for some reason the line is drawn here with Reb. Like, you killed this noble, innocent kid who just wanted to go to fucking Disneyland, and this is too much. You know what? It was ludicrous, and yet it was still more believable than this movie. I can't believe it. Strike Commando was a better movie than this movie. I'm just throwing it out there, because if Expendables wanted to be that kind of movie, it failed. It wanted to be... You might as well have just gotten Quentin Tarantino to try to direct this movie, because he has more of a flair for knocking off old retro filmmakings, like Robert Rodriguez. Predators. Robert Rodriguez made Predators because he wanted to basically copy the formula of a 1980s dumb action movie. And he did it. He did it so much better than this. Like, these are the guys who get it. These are the guys who know how to tell this kind of story. And yeah, I think I figured it out. That's why. Like, it tries too hard. Yeah. That's your movie. Yeah, that's Expendables. I'm really hoping that Scott Pilgrim is better. And I've heard really fantastic reviews of Scott Pilgrim, so I'm fired up. So I'm probably going to see that Sunday. I'm going to take a rest for now. I'm going to... I got a lot of writing to do. I'm doing Final Fantasy X. I'm doing the Ultimate series. Got a lot of stuff to do, so I'm getting to it. Yeah, go see Scott Pilgrim instead. Win or lose, it can't possibly be worse than Expendables. I refuse to believe that, and I really hope it's not. Until then, guys... Oh, and there's no getting to the choppa. They blow up the choppa in this movie. There's no... Yeah, the villains are so pussy in this movie. That's the other... There's no confrontation, really, with the final villain. Like, the villains kind of kill each other, and then... It's not even fair. It's like these villains suck so bad in comparison to the Expendables. It's not... Yeah... Okay, I'm gonna go. You guys have fun. I'm gonna go lay down.